Let's solve the quadratic equation 3x squared minus 8x equals 4 minus 7x. Let's solve this quadratic equation using the quadratic formula, and let's get started. When I look at this equation, the first thing I notice is that it's not in standard form and that there are some terms that I can actually combine. There are some like terms. So what I'm going to do is move everything over to the left side of the equation, which means that I'm going to add a 7x, and I am also going to subtract a 4, and I'm going to subtract the 4 and add the 7x to the right side as well. And what do I end up with? I end up with the 3x squared minus 8x plus 7x becomes a minus x, and then I have the minus 4. And on the right side of the equation, I have the 0. So now my quadratic equation is in standard form, meaning the x squared term comes first, then the x term, then the constant term. And now I'm ready to identify the coefficients, which later I will plug into the formula. So just as a reminder, whenever you're subtracting a term, you can think of it this way. Subtracting an x is the same as adding a minus x to the 3x squared, and subtracting a 4 is the same as adding a negative 4 to the whole thing. How is this helpful? Well, now I can, again, normally I don't write these things out, but for now I will. Whenever there's this coefficient now is a minus sign, which really just means that we have a minus 1 times x, and then we have the plus negative 4 equals 0. So even if I don't usually rewrite stuff in this form, it helps me to think about it this way when I try to identify the coefficients. So a is the coefficient of the x squared term, and that's a 3. B is the coefficient of the x term, and it's a minus 1. And C is the coefficient, well, it's the constant term, so it's just going to be the negative 4. So let's see, I'm going to recopy. So A was equal to 3, B was equal to negative 1, and C was equal to negative 4, if I remember correctly. And now I'm going to plug these values into the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula says that x, the solution to the original quadratic equation, is going to equal minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. Now I'm going to write and rewrite this expression as I simplify it, and I advise you not to skip any steps, not to try to do too much in your head, not because you cannot, but this way it's less likely that you'll make a mistake. Okay, so see right there, I was already writing goofy stuff. So minus, and then b is going to be minus negative 1 plus or minus the square root of minus 1 squared minus 4 times a is 3 times negative 4, and we divide this by 2 times 3. So just because it looks kind of ugly, it doesn't actually make it a difficult problem. Let's see what is happening. Minus negative 1 is just a 1, plus or minus the square root of 1 plus 4 times 3 is 12 times the 4 gives me a 48. Good grief. Again, minus 1 squared is a 1. Then I have a minus, but overall here I'm going to subtract a negative number because 4 times 3 times negative 4 ends up being a negative number. So minus a negative number becomes a positive number, and now the number itself, 4 times 3 is 12, and then we still have the times 4, which ends up being 48. And now we divide this by 6. So again, step by step, I'm going slow here. going to rewrite what's under the square root as a 49, and then we divide this by a 6. Now do not reach for your calculator. I know that you know that square root of 49 is actually just equal to 7. So we end up with 1 plus or minus 7 divided by 6. And again, I want to remind you that the plus or minus here represents basically two different answers. Okay, the plus sign will give me a different value, and the negative sign will give me yet another value for x. Both of those will be solutions to the original equation. On this I made a mistake. Alright, so let's see. 1 plus 7 divided by 6 is the first solution. So I end up with an 8 over 6. And after I simplify, I end up with a 4 over 3. Then the second number is 1 minus 7 over 6, which is just a negative 6 over 6, which is going to be a negative 1. So my final answers are 4/3 and minus 1.